All right, guys, number 3 says that we're on the back side of our notes. Number 3 says that the equation of line H is 2x plus y equals 1. And it says that line M is the image of line H after a dilation of scale factor 4 with respect to the origin, meaning that that's our center. They want to know the equation of line M. All right, so remember that anytime you're dilating lines, you have to remember 2 things. Number 1, the lines will be parallel. If they're parallel, they're going to have the same slope. Okay, the second thing we have to remember is that the y-intercept, okay, is a point. And remember, points get applied with the scale factor. Okay, they change based on what the scale factor is. Okay, all right, so here we go. So the bad news about this equation, different from the last equation, is that our equation isn't in y equals form. Therefore, we cannot tell the slope and we can't tell the y-intercept of our original line in order to do the 2 things that we have to do to it. So in order to get this into y equals form, locate your y. We want him to get by himself. And so 2x is in our way. So we're going to make the 2x go to the other side. And when we do, we end up with y equals negative 2x plus 1. Or you could say 1 minus 2x. But I like it this way. That way my slope is still first and my y-intercept is second. Okay, so here's my slope. And remember, slope is going to get stay the same because the lines are going to be parallel when we dilate them. Okay, here's my y-intercept, and remember what we said about the y-intercept. So if we do the 2 things we remember, our new equation will be y equals, okay, remember the slope stays the same, so right now our slope is negative 2, and so that's going to stay negative 2, followed by the x, so that my lines are parallel, and my y-intercept is a point, okay, technically my y-intercept of 1 is actually technically 0, 1, and when you apply your scale factor, which the question said is 4, that y-intercept is now going to become 0, 4, and 4 being our y-intercept. And so there's the equation of our new line, okay? And that matches number 2, okay? Automatically, guys, remember that if you remember the first one, choice 1 and choice 3 would be gone already. Oh, choice 4 too. They all don't have the same exact slope. Choice 2 is the only one that has the slope. So if you just remember that little bit of information, you would have had the right answer in this multiple choice question. Okay, number 4. It says that the equation the line whose equation is 3x minus 5y equals 4 is dilated by a scale factor of 5/3. So even though that seems like a scary scale factor, remember that in a scale factor, all you do is multiply by 5/3, and your calculator will do that for you. So it's not that terrible. All right, and they want to know which statement is correct. Okay, so I think we can answer the multiple choice question without finding the equation of the line, but part B is going to ask you for it. So in number 1, it says that the image of the line has the same slope. We know that is one of the things we have to remember, okay, as the pre-image, but a different y-intercept. That sounds right. We'll hold on to that one. Number 2 says that the image of the line has the same y-intercept as the pre-image, but a different slope. A different slope. It has to have the same slopes. The lines are parallel because dilated lines are always parallel. Number 3, the image of the line has the same y-intercept as the pre-image. They didn't say anything about the slope, okay? But we also know that the y-intercept changes based on the scale factor. So I think I'm going to get rid of that one. Number 4 says that the image of the line has a different slope. Different slope? No way. Lines are parallel. Parallel lines have same slope, so by 4. And so it's going to be choice 1. Now it's asking us to determine the equation of our dilated line. So again, we have some bad news in this one. Our line, we can't tell the slope in the y-intercept because it's not in y equals form. And this one's a little bit trickier to get into y equals form than the last one. But what we always do is we locate our y, okay, which is attached with a negative 5. All right. And we're going to have to get that y by itself. All right. And before we get rid of the negative 5 that's on the y, we're going to move the 3x just like we did in the last one. Okay. So go ahead and take 3x and move it to the other side. So that now we have negative 5y is equal to negative 3x plus 4. Now we're going to get rid of the negative 5 by dividing, since it's attached to the y with multiplication. Opposite of multiplication is division. Okay, and we end up with y equals, okay, be careful here, a negative divided by negative is a positive, and that's just 3/5, followed by x, and then positive divided by negative is a negative 4/5. All right, so this is the equation of our original line. So remember what we said, okay? This is our slope. It's going to stay the same, so our lines are parallel. This is our y-intercept. This is what's going to get multiplied by our scale factor, which is 5/3. Okay, so our new equation should be y equals, keep the slope the same, and change the y-intercept. So that you might have to put in your calculator, negative 4/5 times 5/3, okay, is technically negative 20/15, but then that reduces. And if you math frac it in your calculator, you'll get negative 4/3. And there it is. Okay, so again, remember, keep your slope the same. Okay, take your y-intercept and multiply it. All right, let's take a look at question number 5, excuse me. And we have the line 3y equals negative 2x plus 8, and it's transformed by a dilation centered at the origin. Which linear equation could be its image? All right, so same problem we've had in the last couple questions is that it's not in y equals for us to tell the slope and the y-intercept. So we're going to go ahead and take our line and we're going to get it into y equals form. And this one's a little bit easier than the last couple in that all we have to do is divide by 3. But we have to remember that it's everybody gets divided by 3. Okay, and that's going to end up being y equals negative 2/3 followed by x plus 8/3. Okay, now they didn't tell us the dilation, the scale of the dilation, scale factor of it. But we do know that this slope has to stay the same. We just don't know what's down here. All right, so we're looking for which equation gives us negative 2/3. Bad news, all of our equations are not in y equals form, so they made our choices extremely difficult to figure out. All right, so we're going to have to get really good at rearranging. Okay, so in number 1, if I were to put this into y equals form, my very first thing would be to subtract 2x. And so I would end up with negative 3y equals negative 2x plus 5. I would then divide by negative 3. And right here, that's going to change into a positive 2/3 slope. And that is not the same as my slope right here. And remember, slope has to be the same. So close is not good. They have different signs, and so therefore they're not the same. In question 2, I'm going to go ahead and subtract 3x to get it into y equals form. And so this one would become 2y equals negative 3x plus 5. And then I would go ahead and divide everything by 2. And you can see right here that my slope would become negative 3/2, which is not the same as negative 2/3. So, nope. Number 3, if I were putting it into y equals form, I would subtract 2x, and I would get 3y equals negative 2x plus 5. Then I would go ahead and divide everybody by 3. And you can see right there that our slope would become negative 2/3. And that is the same exact slope. And so winner, winner, chicken dinner, it's got to be choice 3. Okay. If we had time, I would go ahead and show you choice 4. It didn't work out. Okay. But I think you guys are okay. All right, number 6. It says that the line represented by the equation 4y equals 3x plus 7 is transformed by a dilation centered at the origin, which linear equation could represent its image. So very similar to the last one. Okay. In order to tell what our slope is so that we can keep it the same, we're going to go ahead and put it into y equals form, which is y equals 3/4 x plus 7/4. We know that our dilated line is going to also be y equals 3/4 x plus or minus something. We don't really know what the y-intercept will be because they didn't tell us the scale factor to multiply it, to figure it out. All right, but we are looking for a slope of 3/4. And again, same type of question. None of our choices are in y equals form, so they didn't make it easy for us. So we're going to go ahead. In the first one, we would subtract 3x in order to get it into y equals form. And we would end up with 4y equals negative 3x plus 9. Then we would go ahead and divide by 4. And there's our slope, negative 3/4. However, our slope is positive 3/4. So choice 1's not it. In number 2, to get it into y equals form, we would subtract the 4x. And we would end up with negative 3y equals negative 4x plus 9. We would then divide by negative 3. And right there, you can see that our slope is going to be 4/3 because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. And that is not the same slope as what we have. Okay, it's the reciprocal of it, and we don't need it. And number 3, to get into y equals, we would subtract 4x, and we would end up with 3y equals negative 4x plus 9. Then go ahead and divide by 3. And there's our slope, negative 4/3. But that is not the same slope that we have, and so it's got to be choice 4. But let's just double check so we know we didn't make a mistake. If we subtract 3x, we would end up with negative 4y equals negative 3x plus 9. Then divide everybody by negative 4. And right there, negative divided by negative is a positive, 3/4, and that matches our slope. And so choice 4 is our answer. Okay. All right. Hopefully that helps. So remember, when you're dilating lines or segments, they will always be parallel, and parallel lines have to have the same slope. Okay? It's the y-intercept, that's a point that gets multiplied by the scale factor, and that changes. Okay? Don't make the common mistake of changing both of them. A lot of people will multiply the slope and the y-intercept by the scale factor, and that is not true. You'll get the wrong answer every time. All right. Bye, guys. I'll see you guys in the next day of notes.